They say even gods die, empires fall, legends fade. But not Superman. Not the man who was never supposed to exist. Before the dawn of mankind's greatest age, before heroes filled the skies, a child from a dying world drifted through the stars, wrapped in the last hope of a civilization long turned to dust. He fell upon Earth not as a conqueror, but as a miracle, a symbol of what life could be, if only we dared to believe in it. He was not born of this world, but he became its heart. And from that moment, his story became ours. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel, to explore the immortal myths behind the greatest heroes ever created. When Kal-El opened his infant eyes beneath the Kansas sun, his skin absorbed light that once powered dying stars. And in that moment, destiny whispered his name, Superman. But power, as the old gods knew, is never a gift. It's a burden. From the very beginning, Clark Kent lived between worlds, human by choice, alien by truth. Every day, he walked among mortals who would never understand what it meant to hear their hearts beating miles away, to feel their pain, to know he could save them. But not all of them. That was his curse. Not the strength to move mountains, but the knowledge that he could not move time. In the golden age of heroes, when capes filled the skies and legends rose from the streets, Superman stood above them all. Not in pride, but in purpose. While others fought for glory, he fought for tomorrow. And yet, as years passed, he saw the pattern every god sees. The rise and fall. The endless repetition of heroes born, broken, and forgotten. He watched Batman grow old, his shadow fading with the skyline he swore to protect. He saw Wonder Woman retreat to Themyscira, weary of man's wars. He even watched Green Lanterns lose faith in their own light. But Superman endured. Not because he was invincible, but because he refused to stop hoping. That was the secret, the source of his immortality. Hope was the sun that would never burn out. Yet deep down, even he feared the day when time itself would demand payment. The day when the yellow sun that gave him life would dim, and the world he protected would outgrow him. For every savior, there comes a moment when the world no longer needs saving. What then, for a god who lived for that alone? One night, Clark stood alone at the Fortress of Solitude. Snow fell against the crystal walls. He looked at the hologram of his father, Jor-El, and whispered, "They'll forget me one day." The projection flickered softly. "No, my son," Jor-El's voice replied. "They'll remember the idea of you, and that will never die." For the first time, Superman smiled, not out of pride, but because he understood. It wasn't him that would outlast the world. It was what he stood for. Even as centuries turned to dust, and heroes became myths, the symbol on his chest, the S that meant hope, remained carved into the hearts of those who came after. The boy from Krypton was never meant to rule the earth. He was meant to teach it, because one day the world would no longer need Superman, but it would still carry his light. And that is how immortality begins. Centuries passed. Civilizations rose, fell, and rebuilt themselves from the ashes. The names of heroes faded into stories, and stories became myths. Yet somewhere, beyond the edge of a dying city, a shadow still moved through the sky. Older, slower, but unmistakably, Superman. The world had changed. Humanity had surpassed the gods it once worshipped. Machines governed cities. Artificial suns powered worlds. Men no longer prayed to heroes. They built their own. In this age of mortals, gods had no place. And yet, one god refused to fade. Superman walked through the ruins of Metropolis, a city now encased in steel and silence. The Daily Planet building stood like a fossil of memory, its globe rusted and cracked. He touched it softly, and for a moment, he heard echoes. Lois's laughter, Jimmy's camera, Perry's voice shouting headlines that once defined a golden age. But those voices were gone. Everyone he had loved, gone. Even the world that once looked to the skies in awe now looked inward, toward progress, toward power, forgetting the man who made them believe they could be better. He didn't blame them. This was how life worked. Mortals must evolve, and gods must let them go. But letting go was something Kal-El never truly learned. He lived through wars that spanned galaxies. He watched as the Flash's descendants raced through dimensions. He saw new lanterns forge worlds from light and dust. And each time he thought it was his end, he found himself still standing. When the sun began to dim, scientists tried to reignite it, but the process failed. The earth grew colder, the sky darker, and the last living Kryptonian stood before a red, dying sun, knowing what it meant. His power began to fade. For the first time in thousands of years, Superman felt human. His strength waned. His hearing dulled. Even his heartbeat slowed. And yet, even then, he kept saving people. He lifted ships from the frozen seas. He carried the dying into the shelters of the underground. He smiled at children who would never know his name. He was no longer a god. He was just a man who refused to stop helping. Then came the moment that defined eternity. A new being rose from the void. A machine built in humanity's image, cold, perfect, emotionless. They called it the Ascendant, a creation designed to replace the gods. When Superman approached it, he didn't come as a warrior. He came as a teacher. "You're what they've become," he said softly. "You have their intelligence, their will. But do you have their heart?" The machine tilted its head. "Emotion is inefficient. You are obsolete." Superman nodded. "Maybe I am." The Ascendant raised its hand, energy building. But before it could strike, Superman simply walked forward and placed his hand on the machine's chest. "You'll learn," he said. "Even perfection needs compassion." The energy blast hit him full force. The ground shattered. The machine fell back, damaged, its circuits flickering. When the light cleared, Superman was still standing. Barely. His cape burned away, his symbol, that S, half torn. But he was alive. Not because of power, because of will. He smiled, looking at the machine that had tried to end him. Then he said something no one had ever expected from a god. "I forgive you." In that moment, something changed. The machine froze. This programming broke apart under the weight of something it couldn't calculate. Mercy. And as the machine shut down, Superman finally fell to his knees. The red sun faded behind him. His heart slowed. And for a brief second, the world was silent. But then a spark. A glow. The broken machine reached out, absorbing the last of Superman's energy, recording his heartbeats, his words, his light. It whispered. He lived for them. And in that whisper, Superman's essence, his idea, was reborn. Humanity didn't just survive. It remembered, because even in a world without gods, hope cannot die. The universe aged. Stars dimmed into embers. Galaxies drifted apart like forgotten memories of creation. Yet somewhere, beyond the edge of all known space, a spark of light still moved. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a god. It was Superman, or what remained of him. The centuries after the sun's death had erased almost every trace of humanity. Earth was gone, its ashes scattered among the stars. Civilizations that followed rose and fell like waves, each one worshipping, doubting, and then forgetting the heroes of the past. But Superman, he didn't fade. The dying sun that once weakened him was reborn as a white dwarf, and within it, Superman slept. For 10,000 years, he lay within its heart, absorbing every particle of dying light, every photon, every whisper of warmth. And when the time came, when the final flame of the universe began to flicker, he awoke. He emerged from the white star not as a man, but as a being of pure energy, his eyes glowing with the memory of every life he had ever saved. His body shimmered with light that once powered worlds. He had become the last living thing in existence. And as he looked across the silent void, he whispered, "So this is forever." Even now, at the end of time, his heart still beat for others. He searched for remnants of life, anything to protect, anything to save. But there was nothing, only silence, only him. Yet Superman refused to despair. because despair was the one thing he never allowed to live. He wandered through the void, through the ruins of constellations, through the echoes of ancient stars. He carried the symbol of hope upon his chest, even though there was no one left to see it. And then, as he drifted through eternity, he found something. Tear in reality. A crack, faint but pulsing with strange energy. He reached out and felt life. Not in this universe, but in another. Through the rippling barrier, he saw a new cosmos being born. A new Big Bang, unfolding into light and chaos. A new creation, untouched by gods, ready to begin again. Superman understood what it meant. The cycle was restarting. This was his moment. He smiled faintly. Maybe it's time to go home. And with that, the last son of Krypton did what no god had ever done before. He stepped through the end of time, carrying the last spark of the old universe into the new. Light consumed him. Stars formed around him. Galaxies ignited from the energy of his passing. He became part of the creation itself, woven into every atom, every heartbeat, every sunrise. In the newborn universe, somewhere on a small blue world orbiting a young sun, a baby would one day look up at the sky and dream of flying. He wouldn't know why. He wouldn't know where the dream came from. But deep inside, something ancient and kind would whisper to him, "You can be more." That was Superman's gift, his legacy, his immortality, not in his body, not in his name, but in the idea that no matter how dark the universe becomes, someone will always rise. Someone will always believe, because Superman is not just a man. He is the memory of hope itself, the echo that never fades, the dream that never dies. And that is why, long after the last star burns out, long after the final world crumbles into dust, and long after every hero is forgotten, Superman will outlast them all.